Everyone starting out with AI automations inside n8n, they make the same mistake. They open the node panel, they see all the options, and then they instantly feel stuck. The truth is that you don't need all those nodes, you need just about 10 of them. In this video, I'll walk you through 10 nodes inside n8n every beginner must know, so that you can actually build workflows instead of staring at a blank canvas. Hi, my name is Stephanie and I build AI automations using platforms such as n8n, Microsoft Copilot Studio, and I build AI voice agents in Retail AI, 11 Labs, Baki, etc. So if you are new to n8n, this video is your shortcut, because once you understand these 10 nodes, then you can build 80%, if not 90%, of all the automations you are dreaming about. So let's get right into it. If you're watching this video, I just assume you already know n8n, but if you're new to the world of n8n in general, then n8n really is a workflow automation platform, meaning that it connects different applications and services together so that you can automate repetitive tasks and move data between systems without you having to write full code. So here is what makes n8n special. n8n has risen in prominence over the past few years, and I believe it's mainly because 1, it's open source, and 2, it's self-hostable, and then 3, it's developer friendly. So because of these 3 things, it gives you far more control and flexibility than typical no-code tools. So if you think of a tool like Zapier or Make, like it's hosted on the cloud and that's it, and you have to pay like a monthly subscription to use that. But if you're using n8n, then you can self-host it on your own cloud, and it gives you more flexibility in that way. So think of n8n as the bridge between no-code simplicity and full-code power. So if like a low-code platform like Zapier and Airflow, which is a lot more technical, had a baby, then it'll probably look like n8n. So now that I have explained really what the platform is and how it looks like, let's talk more about the 10 tools that you need really if you're getting started. So let's start first with the foundation, how your workflows actually start. Generally, before you run any automation, you should have a trigger. You can trigger your workflow in multiple ways, but the 2 main ways I want to talk about, especially if you are starting out as a beginner, is first the manual trigger. And the way to do that is to click on the plus button and then you select trigger manually. So this is really the manual trigger, and it's really great for testing. So you use this in almost every workflow while you're building, especially if you're in the testing environment to start with. And then once you sort of like upgrade your workflows, you decide to push them to production, or you decide to make them active. At that point, you no longer need the manual trigger, but what you need is the cron trigger. So the cron trigger is also like the schedule trigger. So you're able to run the flow every day. You can really decide on like whether you want the workflow to run on specific days at specific times, and you can decide whether you want it to run every Monday morning at 9 a.m. or you want it to run like every hour of the day. All these are things that you can really define, and you can set up multiple rules as well. So for instance, you can have like a trigger node that is scheduled to sort of pull leads from a spreadsheet 9 a.m. every morning, or you can even have like a trigger node, like a scheduled trigger node that would send yourself a weekly summary email as well. All these are time intervals that you can define with a cron trigger as well. Once you understand triggers, then n8n really stops being a toy and it starts acting like an actual automation engine. So now that we have the manual trigger and the schedule trigger out of the way, let's talk a bit about the webhook trigger. So I'm going to delete this and I'm going to select the webhook node. So this webhook trigger here, as you can see, it actually starts the workflow automation when a webhook is called. And this is really how other tools would call your workflow. So let's say you have a website, okay, and you're collecting leads, or you have a form onto your website and you want the form to, like, once the customer fills out the form, you want it to perform specific actions, like maybe you want it to send an email or do something. This webhook node would enable that. All you have to do is that you just have to get the URL in here, and then usually you would select either the post or the get method, and then all you have to do is you copy this webhook URL and then you can paste it in your website, or you can paste it in any external tool, whichever tool is triggering this workflow, whether it's Stripe, Notion, whatever tool it is. You can just copy this webhook URL and then paste it in there. The other thing is use the webhook trigger. Like if you are looking to have like real-time automations, then for sure the webhook node is definitely your best friend. All right, now let's talk a bit about some logic. There are a number of logic nodes that you can also use inside n8n, and the first one is the if-else node. Okay, so think of all these logic nodes as like your decision makers. So starting with the if node, it allows you to route items to different branches if they are like true or false. So for instance, you can configure like a yes or no logic. Maybe you have a customer portal and you just want to track if the customer has paid or not. And if they paid, maybe you want to send them a receipt or you want to do something. The if else node is a very good node to help you build in that logic without having to write code. It's very good, especially if you have like simple true or false logic that you want to implement in your automation. This is definitely a really good logic to build in. Now, the other logic node I want to talk about is the switch node. So the switch node and the if else node are slightly different in the sense that the switch node helps you choose between multiple paths. So for instance, if you have different types of customers, right? Maybe you want to perform an action if it's like a new customer, or you want to perform an action if it's an existing customer, the switch node will be very good because then you're able to route the items in your automation depending on the defining expression or rules as well. So another thing would be that like if you have a form or you have a field and you want to trigger the automation based on inputs in each of these fields, then you can also use like the switch node as well. This is really where your automation stop being linear and they start becoming smart. Okay, so now that we've talked about the switch node, the next node I want to talk about is the split node. So the split node, what it really does is that it turns a list inside items into separate items. Let me explain, okay? So it's sort of like gives you the ability to process items one by one, and it's perfect for looking through arrays like multiple line items in an order. So for instance, I was working on this project where we had to populate like 2,000 lines of data inside a Google Sheet, and Google Sheets has like rate limits. So it was sort of always hitting the rate limit within a specific time rate frame. So using the split out node was really helpful because then you're able to break down the data into pieces so that you can limit what goes into which brand at which time. That way you don't hit your rate limits fast, right? Sometimes you are also sending things into a model and the model can only accept certain number of items within a given period of time. You can also use the split out node to break these things into chunks so that your automation doesn't break while you're away. Now let me talk a bit about my free school community. Okay, if you're looking to learn n8n and you're looking to get some more help and advice and all that regarding like AI automation starting out, whether it's for your career or for your business, then you are likely to join my free school community. Inside there you'd have access to all my tutorials, all my templates, and the templates are free, tutorials are free. It's a good space to learn and meet other people as well. And I'm also launching for people who want a more structured and a more accountable way to build AI automations and scale, not just in n8n, but other platforms. Trust me, there are a lot of platforms coming out right now that allow you to build AI automations easily. So if you're looking for a more structured way to learn AI automations and get started with your AI automation business, then I'm also launching a high impact paid membership community. I'm going to launch it in January, but the waitlist is open now. So if you're interested, I'm leaving the waitlist in the comment section below so that you join. Sign up for the waitlist so that you get notified when we launch. Also, as part of the paid membership community, you get access to weekly build sessions, you get access to expert-led workshops, and the focus wouldn't just be on like building AI automation, but also making it a business or finding a way to bring money to you, whether it's through your business or whether it's through your career. Okay, so I'm going to leave the link to sign up in the comment section below so that you can sign up as well. Now, the other node I want to talk about after the split out node is the merge node. So let's talk about the merge node. So on one hand, the split out node is actually helping you like break out data into chunks and pieces. On another hand, the merge node is really helping you combine multiple streams once data from both of them are available. So again, like if you are building an automation and you have to take like data from multiple data streams, then it gives you the ability to like merge the data. I was building this workflow where I wanted to automate like a video creation process where I'd have the audio and the video together. And because I was getting data from multiple streams, that is the audio data and the video data, those two data sources needed to be available first before proceeding on to the next step. So using the merge node was very useful because that way I was able to like wait for each of those streams to be ready first. And the good thing about the merge node as well is like you can really decide whether you want to like combine or if you just want to append. So this is really how you want the outputs of the data coming from the merge node to look like. So just think about like the merge and the split nodes as how you handle more than just one thing at a time without going crazy. If you are looking to like split out data, then for sure you use the split out node. And if you are looking to combine data or you are getting data from multiple data sources and you want to wait for everything to be available first, then you think of using the merge node. Okay, so now that I've talked about the split out node, the merge node, and all that, another important node is the HTTP request node, because it's basically your way to talk to any API in the world. Okay, as long as a tool has an API, even if n8n doesn't have like a native integration, you can still connect it with the HTTP request node. So this is how you access the HTTP request node. So this is HTTP request node, and this is what I was saying. If you look at most tools here, n8n would have like a dedicated node for it. It would already be integrated and everything. But in some cases, they are not, and you want to still talk to them. So for instance, in my previous tutorial, I was trying to automate like a motivational AI avatar video creation process, and I was leveraging Tavos. Tavos does not have like an integrated node inside n8n just yet. I just had to come into the API reference documentation, or what I did was I just like imported a curl code and I was good to go, right? So you just click import curl code and then you can paste it in here. Once you click on import, you'll be able to have like all the data points populated into your HTTP request node, and all you have to do is like replace the dynamic values, right? So like the API keys and stuff. Every tool would have their own way of like presenting this call code. It really depends on what the configuration is, but in my opinion, if you are really like trying to like connect to an external tool, then the call code is the way to go. You set up your URL here, you choose the method, and then if it's requiring any like headers or any additional parameters like the body parameters and all that, you just input them and then you should be good to go. Like it helps you unlock so many things inside n8n. So yeah, the HTTP nodes really turns n8n from just like a drag and drop tool into a real automation platform that can talk to the whole internet. So if you had to learn anything, make sure that you understand how this HTTP request node really works. Now let's talk about the edit fields node, because that's also another interesting node. Now this edit fields node, it really helps you like clean data, right? So most often like the data you would get from the previous step, let's say you're using a webhook node or you're getting data from an app or something, they may provide you with so much information, most of which you don't even need. So using the edit fields node really helps you clean up the data, and it also helps you reshape the node as well. So for instance, if you want to like rename a field that's coming from a data source, you can do so with the edit fields node. If you want to add new fields, you can do so. If you want to remove fields you don't care about, you can do so. And it can also help you like map data into the structure the next node expects. For instance, if you get a first name and a last name as separate fields and you want to have them together, you can basically just like use the edit fields node, use the expression mode in edit fields. So if I click on this, and you can just put in an expression in here and you'll be able to concatenate the two as well. So it's really cool because like you will use it constantly to make your data cleaner, and it's also very easy to work with, especially before HTTP request calls or even if you have to send emails and stuff like that. So that's pretty neat. n8n has made it really simple. Now let's talk about the code node. When you're building in n8n, you don't need to code so much. Well, you can depending on the complexity of your workflows, but if you have to code, then the code node is your cheat code when drag and drop isn't enough. Sometimes in order to implement something, you may need to put in like 5 different like nodes, right? But with a code node, you'll be able to just do it in just one code node, right? So depending on how comfortable you are with coding, the code node can be very, very handy. It's great for small transformation. It's great for custom logic that's annoying to do in multiple nodes. So for instance, if you're getting dates and you want to format it into a particular format, you can use the code node for that. If you're running a small calculation, you can use the code node for that. If you're mapping complex arrays, you can use a code node for that. I mean, for most of what you want to do, maybe you can get away without like using a code node. I actually think that for beginners, like you may not use it, but don't be scared of this node as well. If you want to start using a code node, just start with tiny changes and copy small snippets from docs or AI tools when you need them. Now, let's talk about the wait node, okay? Just like the name implies, the wait node really helps you pause inside your workflow and then continue later. So there are 2 main patterns in here. So you can decide to like wait for a specific time. For instance, if you are building an email automation tool, right? Or maybe, yes, something like that, like a lead signs up to your product. And then you can define that maybe once they sign up, you want them to receive a welcome email 5 minutes later. Or you can say that I just want to be sending welcome emails on Mondays. Like, you can really program this the way you want it. You can have it at a specific time. You can have it for time interval. You can have it on webhook call, on a form submitted. It really depends on like what your logic is. So anytime you want to do X or perform an action and later want to do something else, your wait node can definitely be your friend, and it can be very, very useful as well. Now let's talk about sub workflows. Sub workflows wouldn't really be something you would use when you are beginning, but I find that it's also very helpful as well, because as your automations grow, your workflows will get messy, and you'd realize that for multiple workflows, maybe you're using the same type of nodes, it's the same structure, the same flows. So for those ones, you want to just repackage them into just one sub workflow, so that every time you get to that state where you have to call that flow, you just call that sub workflow. So for instance, if I should go into this workflow here, let's say this is the flow you do, you create a spreadsheet and then maybe you close a Slack channel. Maybe this is a repeatable process for most of your workflows. What you can really do is that you just start this workflow with a sub workflow trigger here. Once you have this in here, it will tag this workflow as a sub workflow. And then when you come into your automation and you select execute sub workflow, you'll be able to select the workflow you're referring to. So that is good for what a sub workflow is. Like I said, it helps you with like reusing common logic. It would help keep your main workflows clean so that you don't have to be like having massive chunks of like patterns and flows inside your workflows. Once you start using sub workflows, it means that you're starting to think like an engineer. You're starting to like break big systems into reusable and smaller pieces. But yeah, don't be too concerned about the sub workflows just now. Maybe for now, just focus on all these other nodes we've talked about. And once you realize that your workflows are becoming very complex and you're reusing a lot of flows, then you can introduce the sub workflows as well. Now, let's talk about the last node, which is very important as well. I'll say that with this node, this is really where AI and n8n really starts playing together. So this is really the AI agent node. So the AI agent node is good in a sense that it helps you plug in AI models. So maybe if you want to plug in like OpenAI, DeepSeek, Gemini, you can do so. And you've seen in most of my tutorial videos, like I've either used Gemini, I've used OpenAI. It really depends, but a good thing about the agents node is that it will just help you plug in AI models stress-free. You don't have to like stress over that, and you have them take actions or make decisions in your workflow. The other thing to note with the AI agents node is that it's good, it's not required, but it's good practice to include some form of memory. I usually typically would add a simple memory for tests. And the reason why you want to have memory is that it gives your agent short-term memory so that it can remember context across types of messages. So that's a super cool to add as well. So for instance, if you have like an AI agent that performs supports, right, then you can have it read messages, it can look up FAQs, it can write a response, and it can all do all these things with a model here, but it can also leverage like the simple memory to help it like remember as well. I'll say that if you're just getting started with automations in general and not just AI automations in general, then you probably don't need to build like a full AI agent on day one, but knowing these two exist for sure will shape how you think about future workflows as well. We talked about all these nodes, and to be honest, these are the 10 nodes that I think every beginner should learn first, because once you are comfortable with these, you can build surprisingly advanced automations from simple email follow-up all the way to AI-powered agents. I mean, if you're looking to start, like you're okay with the nodes and now you're looking to start building something, you want to build your first AI agent, then you would want to watch my video here that's very beginner friendly on how to build AI agents in n8n. I also do have lots of tutorial sessions on Microsoft Copilot Studio, n8n. So check those ones out as well. I'm going to leave the playlist somewhere in this video as well. But yeah, thank you for sticking with me till the end of this video, and hoping to see you in the next one.